In the heart of the civil rights movement, a voice rose above the crowd: Martin Luther King Jr. A man of profound wisdom and unyielding courage, he emerged as a beacon of hope in a time of great turmoil and strife. Born in the deep south of Atlanta, Georgia in the early 20s, King's journey was rooted in the harsh realities of racial segregation. His experiences fueled a burning desire to challenge the status quo and fight for a world where the color of one's skin would not dictate their destiny. King was not just a leader, but a visionary. He believed in a dream of a nation united, where love and harmony would triumph over hate and prejudice. His words echoed across the nation, inspiring millions to join him in his pursuit for equality. In the late 50s and 60s, King led peaceful protests and marches, asserting the power of non-violence in the face of brutal opposition. His eloquence, his conviction, and his unshakable faith in the righteousness of his cause made him more than just a civil rights leader. He was a symbol of hope, a symbol of change, and a symbol of a future where freedom was more than a distant dream. His iconic "I Have a Dream" speech, delivered on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, resonates even today, reminding us of the power of words and the strength of a single, unwavering voice. King's life was a testament to the power of dreams and the courage it takes to make them a reality. He dared to dream, dared to believe, and dared to fight for a world that was yet to be. Yet, as the voice of change grew louder, so too did the voices of those who wished to silence it. And on a fateful day in April of 1968, the world would lose a dreamer, but not the dream. He dreamed of a world where freedom, equality, and justice were not just words, but a reality for all. April 4th, 1968. A day that would forever be etched in the hearts of millions. On this fateful day, the world would lose one of its greatest advocates for peace and equality. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., the beacon of the civil rights movement, met his unfortunate end. His assassination not only shocked America but sent ripples across the globe, shaking the very foundation of the fight for civil rights. Earlier that day, King was in Memphis, Tennessee, lending his voice to the struggle of the city's sanitation workers. It was here at the Lorraine Motel that King's journey would abruptly come to a halt. As he stood on the motel's second-floor balcony, a shot rang out. Struck by a single bullet, King fell, his life slipping away amidst the chaos. The news of his assassination spread like wildfire, leaving a trail of shock and disbelief. This was not just the murder of a man, it was an attack on the dream of equality and the hope for a better, just world. The voice that had echoed the sentiments of millions, the voice that had dared to dream of a world free of prejudice and hate, had been silenced. The aftermath was immediate and intense. As the news of King's assassination reached the ears of the public, the nation was thrown into a state of turmoil. Grief-stricken masses took to the streets, their sorrow quickly turning into anger and frustration. Cities across America were engulfed in riots as the dream of non-violent protest that King had championed seemed to crumble. Yet amidst this chaos, King's message of peace did not falter. His teachings continued to resonate with his followers, their resolve only strengthened by his untimely death. Standing at the crossroads of despair and hope, they chose to honor King's legacy by continuing his fight for equality and justice. The days that followed were a blur of mourning and reflection. King's death was not just a personal loss for his family and friends, but a national tragedy. His funeral, held in his hometown of Atlanta, drew over 300,000 mourners. The sight of this sea of humanity, united in their grief and resolve, was a testament to King's impact and the legacy he left behind. In the wake of King's assassination, President Lyndon B. Johnson urged Congress to pass the Civil Rights Act of 1968, also known as the Fair Housing Act. This was a step forward in the fight against racial discrimination, a fight that King had dedicated his life to. A voice for freedom was silenced, shocking the nation and the world. But despite this tragic loss, the dream that King had nurtured did not die with him. Instead, it took on a new life, inspiring generations to continue his work, to strive for equality, and to keep the dream alive. The impact of King's assassination reverberated far and wide. As the tragic news spread, shockwaves of grief and disbelief swept across the nation and beyond. A beacon of hope had been extinguished, but the flame of his dream refused to die out. The immediate aftermath was a time of turmoil, a period marked by a profound sense of loss, anger, and frustration. Cities across America were engulfed in a wave of riots, as people expressed their sorrow and their outrage. The peaceful protests that King had championed were momentarily overshadowed by the violence and chaos. Yet, in the midst of this turmoil, his message of nonviolence remained a guiding light. The sense of loss was not confined to the United States. Around the world, people mourned King's death. His message had transcended borders, resonating with those fighting against oppression and injustice everywhere. His assassination was not just a blow to the civil rights movement in America, it was a blow to the global struggle for equality. In the wake of King's death, the civil rights movement found itself at a crossroads. Some called for a more militant approach, while others, following in King's footsteps, continued to advocate for peaceful resistance. Despite the differing views, one thing was clear. The fight for civil rights was far from over. As the dust settled, King's assassination led to a renewed sense of urgency and commitment among civil rights activists. His death was a painful reminder of the risk they faced, but it also served as a powerful motivator. King's dream had become their dream, and they were determined to see it realized. Moreover, King's assassination had a significant impact on legislation. Just days after his death, the Civil Rights Act of 1968 was passed, prohibiting discrimination in housing. While it was a step forward, it also underscored the ongoing struggle for equality. King's death had highlighted the urgency of the issue, prompting lawmakers to act, but there was still much work to be done. King's death galvanized activists, igniting a renewed commitment to the struggle for civil rights. His dream lived on in those who continued the fight, in those who refused to be silenced, in those who believed in the power of love over hate. The ripple effect of King's assassination was far-reaching, shaping the course of the civil rights movement and leaving an indelible mark on the world. His legacy was not one of death, but of life, not of despair, but of hope. And it is this hope that continues to inspire us, to remind us of the power of dreams, and to challenge us to strive for a world where equality and justice are more than just ideals, but realities. Though King's voice was silenced, his dream lived on. His life may have been cut short, but his legacy is everlasting. His teachings, his ideals, and his unyielding commitment to justice and equality continue to inspire, resonate, and reverberate through the corridors of time. In the wake of his untimely death, a wave of determination surged through the civil rights movement. King's assassination was not a full stop, but a comma in the long, complex sentence of civil rights history. His message, his dream of equal rights for all, lived on in the hearts of his followers and the minds of the nation. It spurred action, incited change, and gave birth to new legislation. Fast forward to the present day, and King's legacy continues to inspire and guide. His teachings form the bedrock of numerous movements and campaigns, each striving to promote equality and justice. His vision is echoed in the voices of modern activists, from the streets of Ferguson to the Women's March in Washington, D.C. and beyond. Even as the struggle for civil rights evolves, the essence remains the same. The fight for equality and justice, the fight against racism and prejudice, the fight that King led so fearlessly continues. His dream, his vision, his legacy remains as relevant today as it was in the 60s. As we look back on his life, we see a man who dared to dream, a man who dared to stand up, a man who dared to make a difference. And in doing so, he left behind a legacy that transcends borders and generations. A legacy that serves as a beacon, a guiding light, urging us to carry on the fight. As we remember King, we are reminded that the struggle for civil rights is as relevant today as it was then. His dream lives on in each of us, urging us to continue the fight for equality and justice.